Hello dorks, and welcome back once again to another episode of Nalian Talks Anime, this time covering Tokyo Revengers Episode 11, Respect. This episode starts right back where we left off the last time, with the ambulance coming and Takemichi thinking that they've all been saved. This proves to be true as the sirens start to spook off Kiyomasa's goons, and his goons actually leave him behind, knocked out and unconscious, on the pavement, all alone. The sight of them running away and the ambulance almost being there, Takemichi just takes a moment to be so thankful for his friends and coming out in his time of need. He even mentions some of his gratitude toward his friends to Draken, who's right there next to him. Thankfully, the paramedics arrive by being led by Hina and Emma. They put Draken into the truck, or into the ambulance, and they take off down to the hospital. We then cut back over to the scene of the big fight, where we see all of the Toman captains still standing, so it seems like Toman won that fight, aside from Hanma, who is still standing and kind of having like a stare down with Mikey. And that stare down lasts until some random goon on a motorcycle, who doesn't actually seem like he was like part of that fight, but he comes to pick up Hanma, and Hanma hops onto the back of the bike. Hanma then says some pretty interesting things. Hanma declares that there is going to be a birth of a brand new biker gang that's called Valhalla, and it will be the most sinister biker gang alliance in the entire Kanto region. And of course, Hanma is the first vice commander of it, and as vice commander, he declares that Toman will never know peace again. Then he rides away in the rain like a supervillain, probably avoiding the approaching cops. After Hanma runs away, we go back to the ambulance, where it seems that Draken has woken back up. He had apparently passed out again after getting into the ambulance. After he wakes up, he thanks Takemichi for saving his life, and then he tells Takemichi to take care of Mikey for him. And that's when the man goes into cardiac arrest. God damn it, this guy. The paramedics seem to be able to keep him alive long enough until he can get to the operating room and attempt to save his life. While Draken is in the operation room, several people begin to show up, joining Takemichi in the waiting room. The first people to show up are Hina and Emma, followed by all of Takemichi's friends. Then, shortly after them, Mitsuya and Pe, who I guess has realized his mistakes and is no longer an enemy of the gang, but they show up. Then, finally, the last but certainly not least, Mikey shows up. Everybody seems to have assumed Mikey to have some big, over-the-top reaction to the current situation, but instead, Mikey is actually the one who starts to calm down everybody else. He tells them that Draken had promised Mikey that they would rule the world together, so everybody needs to calm down because he'll be fine, and they should just believe in him. However, we seem to have knowledge of another certain timeline where that may have definitely not happened, but hey, at least it might be changed here, right? Eventually, the doctors come out and they say that the operation was a success and Draken's life has been saved. Now, of course, everybody goes wild celebrating, except for Mikey. Mikey actually very quietly and quickly leaves the room. After a brief moment of celebration, everybody who is inside the waiting room at this point decides that they should go outside and, alert the rest of the gang, as there's nothing more that they can do. It's just to let him heal up and rest. Pet starts to hang back a bit because he does not feel as if he can face the gang after what he had done. And that's when Mitsuya tells us some interesting information about what Draken had been doing. He tells Pet that Draken is probably the one who had cared about Pa's situation the most. Apparently, Draken has been going to go see Pa in jail with his family almost every day. Except for, since he can't actually go into the jail because it's for family only, he instead accompanies them to the outside and then gives them a gift to give him. and then he waits outside while they visit. Mitsuya then tells Pe that he needs to apologize to Draken and to everybody else in the gang. And then after that, he actually welcomes him back to the gang, as if nothing had happened. Takemichi now realizes that the current date is August 4th, meaning that his mission to save Draken from dying on August 3rd had been successfully completed, as Draken was alive on a day he wasn't supposed to be. After a huge wave of relief hits Takemichi, he realizes that Mikey isn't outside with everybody else. After a very brief search, Takemichi finds Mikey off somewhere all alone. Before he calls out to Mikey, Takemichi realizes that Mikey is there crying out of relief for the safety of Draken. He decides to leave Mikey alone to deal with that himself, and we get about a 6-day time skip to the 10th of August. Apparently, due to some rumors, Takemichi has become kind of a, as he said, legend among delinquents. And to show off his legend status, Takemichi of course has to put on some really cool clothes and walk around like he owns everything. He goes to go visit Draken in the hospital, and Draken instantly takes him down a peg. He calls his clothes lame, which they are, and basically just tells him not to get such a big head just because of what he did. Be humble, Takemichi. Come on. Draken tells Takemichi that he has something for him, and that something is a bag that Mikey had brought, and inside of that bag is Mikey's old uniform from when he joined Tomen. And apparently, Mikey wants to give that uniform to Takemichi. Draken then tells Takemichi that he saved Tomen, which he kinda did. It's more along the lines of he saved the current version of Tomen, but that's just because we have future knowledge. But he then gets out of bed and bows to Takemichi and thanks him once again. Takemichi then expresses that he does not feel worthy to wear Mikey's old uniform, to which Draken replies to go meet Mikey on the roof since he's probably sleeping up there. Once Takemichi gets to Mikey, Mikey stands up and starts talking about what he's been thinking about. Apparently Mikey has been trying to figure out why things that just happened. He seems to have 3 major mysteries that he wants to figure out. 1. Why was Hanma trying to cause issues inside of Tomen? 2. Why did he try to use Kiyomasa and his lackeys to kill Draken? And 3, and the biggest mystery being Takemichi himself. And that's because Takemichi realized the inner strife within Tomen before anybody else did. He also knew about the plan to kill Draken and then also tried to stop it from happening. At that point, Takemichi had a bit of a clueless face. I mean, truthfully, what do you say to that? Mikey then asks Takemichi, "Who the hell are you?" But Takemichi couldn't even answer. Eventually, Mikey breaks the tension between them by asking Takemichi why the hell he looks so lame. It seems rather than try to pry into the mystery that is Takemichi, Mikey is just glad that he saved Draken, and he's just gonna leave it at that. He then thanks Takemichi and shakes his hand. To me, it seems like Mikey isn't going to pry any further, because as long as Takemichi's weirdness continues to benefit him and Tomen, he just better not question it. However, due to this whole situation, I have to wonder if the things that Takemichi says in the future will carry more weight with Mikey, considering how ahead Takemichi seemed to be on everything happening. After that, Takemichi decides to head over to the Tachibana residence to say goodbye to Hina and shake hands with Naoto so that way he can go back to his own time. He gives Hina a necklace with a 4-leaf clover on it, and then he shakes Naoto's hand, sending him back to the future. Now at this point, Takemichi believes that in saving Draken, it means that Kiseki won't be able to become number 2 in the gang, and Mikey won't change, meaning that Tomen won't become evil and Hina will not get killed. I don't agree with this necessarily, but I'll talk about that more at the end. Instead of returning back to Naoto's apartment once he returns to the present, he finds himself back at his old job at the DVD store that he had gotten fired from previously. I have thoughts on this, but again, I will save that for later. Takemichi then looks down to like pick up his phone or something, and he realizes that he still has the scar from the knife wound that he also realizes that he can't find Naoto in his contacts. And then probably the most important thing, he's unable to find any information about the crash that kills Hina, meaning that so far she seems to be alive. Takemichi then has an alarm going off for a scheduled appointment at the salon. He arrives to the salon and finds that Akun is there, cleaning up old hair, and he also has his original hairdo from when they were young. Takemichi just spends some time outside of the window crying at the sight of Akun. We then learn that Akun is currently working as an assistant and gets to start cutting hair next month, and he asks Takemichi to be his very first customer, all because of the promise that they made when they were young and Takemichi was in the past. Naoto is the one who ends up calling Takemichi, and Naoto also seems to have his memories intact. I have some thoughts on this that I will get into here in a second, but Naoto also wants to pick up Takemichi so that they can go see Hina, and that is where this episode ends. At this point, I'm going to circle back to some of the previous things that I talked about and try to take another look at them or just talk about them a little bit more. The first thing being that in Saving Draken, Kiseki can't become number 2, meaning that the gang won't change and Tomen won't become evil. As we already know, there's somebody working in the background to try to take down Tomen for some reason, and I'm not sure if they would be stopped just by this first plan not working, you know? Like, there still might be some strife that Tomen's gonna have to go through before they're completely off the evil path. Especially with this new gang that was introduced, or at least teased, that hasn't seemed to had any relevance in the investigation so far. So I wonder what Valhalla does to Tomen after all of, the events of the past. So in short, I don't think they're quite out of the woods yet, because we also have to remember that Takemichi's real end goal was to stop Mikey and Kiseki from meeting. Saving Draken was just part of that goal. The second thing I want, or I guess it's more of a question that I have, is why he went back to his old job at the DVD store. Shouldn't he be doing, like, gang stuff with the rest of Tomen? Because Tomen saved, and Takemichi didn't end up running away like he did in the past. So, what is he doing? Did he end up leaving the gang once his, I guess, younger consciousness took back over? I'm just curious about that whole situation, and I'm not totally sure what could have happened. That's something we're gonna have to wait and see, I guess. And truthfully, that question extends to Akun as well. In the past, Akun had gotten stuck in Tomen, unable to escape until he climbed up the ranks and then killed himself. But now Akun seems to be working a normal job, working as an assistant at a hair salon. So what's the story there as well? Did they all just leave the gang at some point, like after they graduated? I'm hoping we'll get some sort of explanation on that stuff at some point. And then the last thing I am excited to see, like their explanation of it, is Naoto retaining his memories. I've kind of already expressed my thoughts on it being, if you know that the past is going to be changed, then you're kind of aware of it, being able to retain your memories. However, there are different cases for both Takemichi and Naoto, because Takemichi is physically transferring, I guess not physically, but is the one who's actually transferring consciousness with his past and present self. So I can kind of see why there might be some memory discrepancies between the two, since Takemichi doesn't seem to actually retain any memories of what happened between the last time he shook Naoto's hand and where he is now. Like, he doesn't have any memories of this new life. So that's a little interesting. And then in the case of Naoto, this Naoto technically grew up with the memories of the timeline in where Takemichi saved everything. Yet he also remembers that Takemichi had to go back into time to save everything. So I'm not sure if Naoto's like original timeline consciousness takes over his consciousness from the new timeline or something like that, or if he just has two like arguing sets of memories, or if he was just woke up one day with the memory of Takemichi doing that. I have no clue, and I guess I'm just gonna have to wait until they explain that themselves. That will do it for this episode of Nalion Talks Anime. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe if you liked the video, and I will see you guys in the next one. See ya!